And um, I'm just looking for some notes that I had here for today on the SEDS discussion, but we may go sideways on that one. So in terms of getting started today, as we usually do, let's just start and do quick introductions with everyone. And generally the introduction, in addition to who you are and where you may be at or affiliated, since we've got some new folks, we generally always start off these meetings with also kind of a framing question about what's been interesting that you've seen in the last week since we've met. New thinking, new ideas that are maybe helping shape your thoughts about what our next Alaska is or could be. And so kind of open-ended, but again, that's kind of the general focus of our discussions is moving us in the direction of what Alaska could be in the future. And it's underpinned with the notion that it's our discussions that take us in the direction that we're going to travel. And so we want to try and move in those directions of interesting opportunities. And so I invite you today to kind of jump in for this hour. These are always very organic discussions. Our fourth Monday of the month is our board meeting, but these intermediate ones are always just kind of loosely drop-ins, and the discussion goes where the people have come from that have come into the meeting in terms of where we'll go. It is, generally our intent to try and move these discussions, though, however far afield in the different bunny trails, towards some sort of action and an opportunity that helps us individually, helps our organizations, and helps Alaska. So kind of three levels of impact that we hope we're making there. So I've said enough, and I guess just for the recording, and just to remind you that this thing is recording, that this is the June 17th Alaska version 3 meeting, just so we have that in the record. So I'm just going to go around the horn here with the names as I've got them on here, and I'll just begin and just note that I'm Kai Holland. I'm the chair of the board of Alaska version 3 now that we have a board, woohoo. But I've been working with a great group of Alaskans now for a year and a half, exploring this question of what's next. And the thought that was on my mind, I was reading some material that actually Beth, who is on the call, had shared with me. And it took me off on another bunny trail, looking into zeitgeist and what that means in terms of, what are the issues of our times. And it occurred to me that a lot of the work we're doing in Alaska version 3 is really working at the edge of, I think, a change in the very fabric of our communities. And the climate change, energy transitions are all rebalancing the focus between industry outcomes and profit, and shifting it over to the health of our planet, and with it the health of people and organizations that they're associated with in their communities. I think it's a fascinating time that we're in, and I think it takes some balcony view at times to really appreciate just how monumental the shift is that's happening. But zeitgeist is kind of my word of the day that I'm trying to reacquaint myself with, and it's got me thinking about how does that inform the work that we do. So that's enough about me for a second, and I'm up here in Anchorage for those of you that are traveling and whatnot. So let's see, moving down, Dixie, you want to say hi, and what's new and interesting with you today?
Let me figure this all out. I'm in the valley. It looks kind of cloudy, but I think we're gonna have a great day with hopefully a little bit of rain, because we need the rain. We've had a lot of clouds due to the fires in Kenai and up north, but what I'm working on is military transition, workforce development, and as I listened to read your note yesterday, we need innovation. And we're going to have a meeting on the 23rd, and it's kind of the meeting of the minds of some leadership in Alaska that are veterans and are working collectively to promote a lot of opportunities. As we know, we've got the DOT working with the funding for transportation, and Elmendorf and well, both actually, Elmendorf and J-Bear. And Eielson and up north will be busy this year. So I think we have a chance and opportunity to use our skills and our innovation to make Alaska in that sector.
Yeah, super. Thanks for joining us, Dixie, and especially thanks for helping nudge along this military opportunity and keeping alive both the balance between the workforce transitions, but also the innovation area. I'm excited to be a part of that meeting next week. Let's see, Andy, how are you? I saw a wonderful picture, but I suspect you didn't get a lot of sleep last night.
I am tired for sure. So my name is Andrea, or Andy, I go by Andrashko, and I am currently a visiting instructor of business at Alaska Pacific University. So that's kind of how I got drawn into AKV3. I see a few new faces here, or faces that I have forgotten, I guess. But anyway, so I've been along this ride almost since the beginning, not quite. I think you guys were a few months in. And so my current is that my brain is not working very well. I just traveled from the East Coast last night and arrived at 2 o'clock this morning. And I guess if there's one thing that kind of strikes me is a disconnect, and this doesn't have anything really, or it doesn't have as much to do with what we're doing, but there's a disconnect in the lower 48 with Alaska, and especially when it comes to like shipping here. And I mean, this is something that I think every Alaskan knows, but I've been without a hubcap on my car for probably over a year now. It went flying one day, and so I wanted to get a replacement hubcap, but in order to do that, nobody on eBay wanted to send me a hubcap to Alaska. And so I sent it to my parents' house, and because I knew I was going to be down there. So I arrived down there in May, and I took one look at this hubcap that was mailed to me using the US Postal Service, but yet they had refused to mail it to Alaska. And so I think it's kind of making me feel like, as much as I've been going back and forth between the lower 48 and here, it's starting to make me feel like Alaska has a bit of a, we like our isolation a little too much. And I think we really need to do a better job of connecting with lower 48 and stop being so isolated. And yes, oh, my apologies, I live on Lake Hood, so it is noisy this time of year. And I lost my train of thought. Things are different in Alaska, business is different in Alaska, but I think we still need to connect to the lower 48 for opportunities and to sort of learn more about what's going on and have some sharing, some information sharing, so that we can take the parts and pieces that we need to access. But it seems to me if we are the fourth largest, if we're the fourth largest air cargo hub in the world, why are we not able to take advantage of that here in Alaska? That's cyclical. That comes back to me every few months. I think about that. But isolation is not a good thing, and I really want us to, or want Alaska to think bigger than what they have been when it comes to the economy here. Fostering internal growth, but having a better relationship with external stakeholders. Okay, I'm done. So anyway, I'm glad to be back in Alaska anyway.
That's wonderful. Thanks. And thanks for sharing that picture this morning. Andy had shot a lovely picture coming in over top of the Chugach Mountains, what, around 1 o'clock last night or something. I'm not sure when it was. It was kind of dark, but looked like maybe the Connect River shot that you had there. And it was just a gorgeous shot of the Chugach Mountains in the early light or late light, same.
It was, I had dozed off and woke up just as we were starting to descend. And I looked out the window and was like, holy cow, that is, I've never flown into Anchorage on such a clear night. It was just spectacular. So yeah.
All right, thanks.
I have one question. She brought up a good point, Andy, because that's the same I hear every time I want to look for a job down in the lower 48, and they'll say, well, you're too far and you're not close to an airport, and where is Alaska? And no, sorry, we can't because you're not within a hub. She hit a point. That's part why I am where I am at right now.
Thanks, Dixie. I'm just making note of that. Let's see, Audrey, you want to jump in and say hi, where you at, what you up to, and anything that comes to mind that's interesting to you that you've run into recently, kind of related to Alaska and innovation and where we're going. I bet you've seen a bunch.
Hi, I'm Audrey Hollis. I'm with Generator. I'm the grants coordinator, and I live in Indiana. We just came back from a conference, so we saw a lot of great startups present about innovation, and there was some really interesting educational startups. There was one I especially liked about getting digital learning out to younger kids. That was really fascinating and maybe interesting for a state where people are a lot more remote and have to deal with weather challenges. So yeah, that's what I've seen lately.
Great, thanks, Audrey. Let's see, Beth, welcome.
Hey everybody, Beth Wake is here from the lower 48 in Berkeley, lovely cold Berkeley, California today. And just coming off a huge high from the Warriors win last night. Yay. I have been involved with, so I have a pretty deep connection to Alaska through my friend Kitty Farnham, and have been working with the Anchorage Climate Equity Council for the past 2 years almost, Camilla, I think. And got involved with, I'm really interested in large systems change and how do you go from status quo to something new, and do it in a way that's innovative and engaging. And so I joined up with Alaska version 3 months ago now, and have worked on some collateral materials and been intrigued by the whole movement. And I did send Kai some systems change info. That was great. So thanks for the graphic, Kai. I think you sent me the graphic, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. I sent that off to Fritjof Capra. So, but yeah, just really interested to be involved from a systems perspective. And I personally I visited Alaska a bunch of times, and really, I'm deeply moved by pretty much everything Alaska. So. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us today. Camilla, glad to see you joining us again today. A brief introduction and what's happened in the last week with you.
Yeah, hi. Camilla Hussein Scott. I've been working with Beth for the last 2 years in different capacities on the Anchorage Climate Equity Council. I would call it advisory group, and then yeah, and I'm currently also the operations manager for the Alaska Public Interest Research Group. And you talked about Zeitgeist. I'm German, and for me, Zeitgeist is just that big word that I like to, I can really delve into how interesting that term is, and every place I step, it has a different meaning. Here now in Anchorage, I'm very much involved with the immigrant community, and the innovation part is, and the opportunities are just grand. They're humongous. There's so many chances where we could bring in people who are optimistic to start up organizations or businesses that would benefit, that we could benefit so much from. And we are that one of the busiest hubs here at the airport, international trade, and we have the connections locally. Like the Korean community is very busy here in Anchorage, or in general in Alaska. And the association's president is my good friend, Key Getty, if any of you know her. And tapping into that would be such a big opportunity. And of course, with that comes, the language access part and all of that. So I'm gonna stop here. And I'm from Eagle River, outside of Anchorage.
Nice. Thanks for joining us today, Camilla. We're going to come back after we do kind of this round of introduction, Camilla. I want to do a follow-up on the discussion briefly about last week, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Let's see, where am I? I'm losing track. Lean.
Hi, folks. Good morning or good afternoon if you're in the Midwest. My name is Lean Benayat. I am the grants director at Generator. So I specifically help our company apply for various funding opportunities nationwide, and specifically in partnership often with various nonprofits, community-based organizations, and government agencies. Generator is a nationally ranked startup accelerator, venture capital firm, and workforce development provider. And my number one goal is to support our local staff in Alaska, grow our programming and support the key target populations that we're focused on. So specifically, and I'll let her speak to it more, my goal is to support Linda as our G-Beta director. She's specifically supporting local entrepreneurs grow and scale their businesses through a 7-week pre-accelerator program that we run several times a year. And we've seen some really incredible innovations, really looking to support and the Alaska economy and the way of life there. So really excited about that. And in that same vein, we have Gianna, who's also in Alaska, who is actually from the Wounded Warriors Project. She's very, very committed to the veteran population and is a veteran herself. She is our program director for the Skills Accelerator. And we specifically we support under and unemployed folks in skilling for digitally enabled jobs. And then we place them in both local and remote positions. And so we are looking to, continue and sustain these programs in the region. We're seeing a huge impact, and we believe there's a value to the programming in the state. And so my number one goal is to bring funding to sustain not only our programs, but, your programs and the other great work that all of you are doing. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Lean, for bringing that up. There's a lot to come back to on that. But let's continue on for the moment, and let me jump to Linda just to kind of create some continuity with that discussion.
Linda just sent us a message, and I believe she's under the weather actually, so she's just listening in.
Gotcha.
The reason I didn't speak to the local ecosystem is because we have amazing folks like Linda and Gianna who can do that much better than me. So I do look forward to continuing the conversation though.
Fair enough. We'll come back then to that in a minute. And Linda, I hope you're feeling better. Your voice is so important in so many of the events that we do, so take good care of it. Let's see, Laura, let's come to you, and then we'll wrap up with Dick. Laura?
Oops. Hey, I'm excited to be back in this meeting. I feel like I've missed a ton, like 6 months. I know this is sort of a new iteration, but anyway, for me, it's exciting to see some folks in this group from out of state. That's always exciting to me because I love the learning potential. I am an entrepreneur in Anchorage that has been through the startup ecosystem here. And we launched Pandier Shoes in 2018. And so we make expandable footwear for people with various different medical conditions, people who can't fit into off the rack shoes. And, we're keeping going, and this week has been kind of a good week. Lots of exciting things. We're getting ready to launch our second Kickstarter next week. And so it's been very focused on that. And that's all I have to say.
Great, thanks, Laura. And Dick, why don't you wrap it up?
Okay, real quick. I spent Sunday through Thursday morning at the mid-year conference of the National Congress of American Indians here in Anchorage. Had 1,000 attendees from all around, not just Alaska, but lower 48. And interesting there, the dotted line or connection to our work here, a lot of money that's pouring into, as we say, Indian country, from infrastructure money, and of course, a lot of continuing programs in health and education, and corporate money within the Alaska Native corporations and lower 48 companies. But I see innovation and creativity and the need for a lot of the work that we're doing here, connecting with those folks. And so I'm going to try and do that. And for those of you that do not know, I'm an enrolled member of the Northern Cheyenne tribe in eastern Montana. I left the res in '78 to move to Alaska. A few other things. Kai, thank you for sending out that note about the Pacific Excellence program, Program Excellence Northwest, that's going to be here next Thursday. There's an open free workshop that is going over the Baldrige Award program, the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. The Performance Excellence Northwest is based out of Lake Oswego, Oregon, and they are an organization with Baldrige examiners that help an organization look at the Baldrige criteria. And I think it has a place for innovation and startup companies get a good baseline on what it takes to really create a quality environment and the thinking around that, especially for startup entrepreneurs. A couple other things. The Alaska World Affairs Council, we're putting together our program for next year. Ryan happens to be on that board as well. So we're looking for speakers that have connections, obviously, with world events, but also things that have to do with Alaska or the circumpolar region. Of course, there are a lot of activities, China, Russia, climate change, security, all kinds of things there. I did get a note from, I don't know, some of you may know about the Alaska Housing Innovation Summit. You know about that, Camilla? You're shaking your head, yes.
Yes, I heard about it.
Yeah, I'll try and get some more information and get that to folks. I found a link, but it doesn't have a whole lot of information on it yet. That's just ahead. I'm working with two Alaska Native corporations, one a large nonprofit, and another one's a large ANC. And a big part of the caucus of the National Congress, American Indians, they have regional breakout sessions. Alaska is the largest, not just because we're here in Alaska, but wherever it's held. And this continuing debate, if you will, between the Alaska Native Corporation, sort of the Western corporate model, and traditional village or indigenous orientation. That debate or that conflict or that conversation, less conflict, less debate, but more overlap. How do we make that work? So that environment, I think, is very fertile for lots of things, including for, I think, some of the work we're doing. So there you go, Kai. I'll stop there.
Wonderful. Thanks for the update. So much going on there. Yeah, some themes there to pick up on, but I think we'll have to kind of let that circle for the moment, because I think one of the underlying issues for Alaska is how to find a new future for our state that actually blends together the Alaska Native ways and issues and needs with the Western ways. And I think Alaska could lead the country in demonstrating a way to build an integrated structure that protects and enhances the diversity of all the different groups, and yet blends the best of both, as opposed to keeping them separate and isolated, as even I see going on right now, doing a lot of the work I do in Southeast Alaska. That miss that opportunity. Cool. Let's see. I think I got everyone. Thank you for the time to go around that. And I hope everybody, as I do, appreciates the richness of all the work going on with everyone who's here today. I want to check in on two things quickly, but because of the group here from G-Beta, I really want to dive into that in a little more detail. But just as follow up to our meeting last week, so I'd like to try and close the loop on what we've talked about before. We talked last week about the Climate Action Coalition, and Camilla, I know you were interested in trying to hook up with Margie and the climate action work coming out of Fairbanks and the regenerative work of the working group. And I'm just curious if you've been able to make some connections with that and kind of what you've learned, if anything, or can we be of help in nudging anything along at this point? But it was a rich discussion, and I'm curious what you've learned from that.
Yeah, very quickly, I'm in contact already with everyone. I'm on the board with the Alaska Center Education Fund, and I got connected with Kay Brown, who had concerns about how can we connect what we're doing on this end and everywhere else with the port. And this is an interesting ongoing conversation. Kind of somehow it always ends on on the port, the discussion on the port and the funding and all of that. So this is what I kind of took out from that for now, for just trying to wrap my head around everything. I don't know if this is useful for you all. It's just something that really, had got my attention.
So you gotta tell me here, because I've got to imagine others are scratching their heads. Why did the port show up as the nexus of this discussion? I mean, I know Kay, I know the breadth of all the issues that's going on here, but I'm kind of lost connecting the dots on how we landed on the port as the nexus of this discussion, because I think the port is critical, but I didn't quite connect the dots yet.
Yeah, no, I'm still trying to see what the what the connection is there.
I'm not alone.
Because for me, my discussion is climate equity and access to foods, food security and all of that. And I think this is why the nexus kind of like the conversation went there. But if Beth, if you can check.
So Camilla and I haven't had a chance to really chat since our last meeting. It's been a crazy week for me. But I think the goal was to reach out to Margie, and we can do that easily because we both know her. So that's definitely on the to-do list, I think, in the next couple of weeks before the holiday. Right. If she's around, I don't even know.
Yeah, if she's around, I just did a debate / interview with her yesterday. So she's around. And did you guys get hooked up with getting Camilla to that every other Monday of Regenerative Economies Working Group?
We'll look at that too. Yeah, it just got sidetracked this week. Sorry.
No worries.
It's on the list of things to do for both Camilla and I. And Camilla's she is and just to be clear about our conversation last week too, wanted to mention that the Climate Equity Council, our goal with that is to really put together, is to do outreach in the diverse communities of Anchorage and really put together a diverse group of people who can hold, the mission is to hold the city of Anchorage responsible for their climate action plan, but to do it in an equitable way where all voices are heard. So that's the specific goal, but there's a lot of bigger things that come out of that. So including climate equity in Alaska and generally and what's being done. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Beth. And this is Kai. This is why somehow it ended up with the port. Yeah. But I know this was just like this, just was this one conversation, but I haven't had a chance to talk with Margie yet specifically about it.
Well,
Got that together.
To the extent it overlaps, for the rest of you, just, the broad issue here is that this climate transition, energy transition, equity issue is all kind of seen as part of the next Alaska framework, both in terms of opportunity as well as, how we do the work in the future. So this is really important. And part of my interest with the port is very simply that the port is a wonderful example of how we have these big construction projects. This is a $1 to $2 billion project. And if somebody were to walk up to anyone in this group today, because I know you all, and I know, your interest, if somebody were to walk up to one of you and say, I've got $2 billion and I want you to fix the port so it's good for another 100 years. But when you do it, I want you to transform the economy around the port and in our state by virtue of how you do that project and what infrastructure, capacity, capability, and competitiveness is created around that structure when it's all done. And we can't have that conversation because it's a frigging construction project. And all of the bids go out so that Portland gets all the projects to supply the steel and the concrete. And we have missed the opportunity for innovation, for transitions, for our community. So I kind of passively, ask why the port, but to me, the port is a really great part. And for those of you that aren't more familiar, this Denali Commission project that is our first funded project for AKV3 is basically funding us to dive into that very question. How do we create innovation that is stimulated by the capital projects that we do in this state and move away from seeing capital projects as a construction spend activity?
Hey, Kai,
yes, sir.
we have to deconstruct the construct.
I love that. Thank you. Yes. So, okay. Well, do Camilla and Beth, if there's more that we can, do
Thank you.
to make more connections, let us know. But also, as this thing circles around and we can learn from this, I think there's a lot happening here, and I love the connections with this, and also potentially the resources, particularly that Camilla offers with the language and the access and communication to some of the groups that we'll want to involve.
Yeah.
I want to touch just briefly on the military meeting coming up on the 23rd. That's at 3 p.m. next week. Is that right, Dixie?
Yeah, it is. And then we've actually got Kyle, which is very difficult to find him. And then there's already a discussion back and forth on emails. So I think it's going to be really, very productive. And we can maybe include some of your discussion points in this meeting as part of the overall agenda.
Is somebody working on an agenda for that meeting?
My understanding, yes, but I'm not for sure. You might drop a note.
Okay, I'll follow
Do you mind
up.
if I just jump in really quick and ask, what is the military meeting? I'm
Basically, it's a collaboration of various individuals that are part of AK3, but also others that are joining the equation that are in the innovation sector and our veterans. It's just kind of a general outreach to kind of find and start a new opportunity to discuss new innovations and work development, because we are going to Alaska itself is going to generate more veterans in the probably next 10 years.
So it's an effort to reach veterans and engage in entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to try to participate, but that doesn't sound
Yeah,
like
go ahead and participate. It's on the 23rd, and then Kai's got the time, and if he'll send you an invite, that would be definitely great.
I'm not a veteran, so I don't think it, I'm not sure if it makes sense. I'm interested in connections to the military, but I don't think that sorry.
Yeah, and Laura, if I can just say, there's kind of two broad threads here. One is the thread of the workforce development job opportunities for vets, but the broader arc is trying to increase the open innovation structure that recognizes the military as a huge part of our community, and that their opportunities overlap into our startup community and into the rest of the world. So you're absolutely part of this discussion, because we're trying to explore how do we create a more active and functional connection between both the innovation going on within the military bases and the operations going on. So this is existing operations,
Yeah,
like with the
that's-
SPA works and the Arctic Spark thing, but also the vets that are transitioning out that maybe are interested in some of the entrepreneurship programs that they offer for transitioning vets, and then the military vets who are completely out, who have an innovation entrepreneurship opportunity. So it's kind of three focuses there.
I would add one more, and that is that if you're not a veteran, but you're women-owned business like us, you really need to partner with a veteran in order to get through the door. And there's, we've been working on it for 3 years and we've literally gotten nowhere. So, that's like a big goal for us.
The biggest thing is what we got to do, and I've talked to a lot of folks, we need to get SkillBridge involved in the program, and you could be a venue for offering SkillBridge.
I'm not sure what SkillBridge is.
It's basically an internship that will allow somebody to, when they're transitioning out, to and it would be to work as a business, and then eventually once they get out after 6 weeks, then they can land and begin a new career.
Okay, well, let's pick this up, and I'll work on the agenda piece with the group, Dixie, and Laura, I'll copy on some of this. I know you've got a lot going on, but I'd love to see you, connect up with this, because I know you've had some past interest in this area. And ultimately, the goal of this is to recognize how important the military is to our economy, and to recognize the opportunity to get as much benefit out of the military in terms of innovation and economic development as we do from their defense and their role protecting our country. So I just think it's a important part of the ecosystem in our future to try and develop. So more on that meeting coming up on the 23rd, I think at 3 p.m. And if anybody is particularly interested in that, I'll try and send out stuff or message me, and I'll try and make sure you get included on that. So let's circle around. I know in the invitation for today, I'd suggested a couple possible discussion areas, including the military and also the comprehensive economic development strategy. But I want to circle back around to the generator folks who are able to join us today and take advantage of that with the time that we have. I suspect that you guys got pulled in here because of the discussion with Ryan, maybe with the 4th Avenue Marketplace project. And I know that that's still going on. I think you're also loosely connected up with Mark Billingsley and the effort to have tried to get the funding for you tied into the Build to Scale project that didn't quite pan out. And I've been working on some other discussions about trying to get the funding tied in with the ARPA-A funding, even if the 4th Avenue Marketplace doesn't happen. But I'm, kind of curious as to where you guys are at this point. I know the general discussion, just to be kind of blunt about it, is that it's been kind of hard to get clear information to try and land this thing. And I'm not sure kind of what happened, but I'm also trying to figure out how to move ahead with keeping generator and specifically the G-Beta pre-accelerator program going on in Alaska. And it seems like it's kind of gotten a little hard, and I don't know what we can do to move it ahead, or maybe you've got some new angles that are going on. But I've got basically 3 paths that I've been working on trying to find funding, and each one of them's, got its own challenges, but the ARPA is the only one that's kind of alive at the moment. But at any rate, you guys want to jump in with some thoughts on where you're at and what we can do to help you?
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. I think the only path forward that you've kind of laid out, Kai, is the one through ARPA. So, we are at the ready to provide any and all information that you need that would help make a case for the value and impact of the program. So just know that if there's any information lacking on our behalf that we can provide you, I'd be happy to provide case studies and data and all types of things like that. The one thing that we are looking at right now is the National Science Foundation has a huge funding opportunity called the Regional Innovation Engines. Are any of you familiar with this?
I've been following it. There's a Alaska group that's attempting to put together a proposal, and you know, there's a couple discussions about some concept papers that folks are looking at putting in by the end of the month.
Yeah, so quick background for those who don't know, the National Science Foundation is looking to give 10 awards of up to $160 million to develop regional innovation engines or ecosystems. Now, the NSF has traditionally provided funding to research institutions, and here they're really trying to take user-inspired research and grow ecosystems that in regions that were left out of the tech boom of the last decade. And so and actually, if you don't mind, I'll share a really quick slide here that's helpful in kind of envisioning what this looks like. So this is from the NSF webinar. So you'll see here, these are the different structures potentially that an engine could take. And generator fits in a couple different areas, specifically right here with the startup accelerator component and the startup incubator. So essentially we're trying to take the innovations, the research, help commercialize it and bring it to market, and growing and scaling those innovations that become startup businesses. And so, you can see here there's, the NSF wants to see accelerators as part of, as one of the core partners in these engines. We think that the best path forward, and what we're seeing in other states, is that the universities are kind of taking the lead on most of these concept papers. And so where we're at currently is, I attended a call, and I wish I had the list of contacts in front of me, and I can certainly follow up, that NSF hosted, where they did an Alaska breakout room. And the outcome of that was we actually reconnected with Professor Webley at UAF, and he's interested in looping in the G-Beta program as a core component of his proposal. And they're specifically focused on blue economy, ocean. That's kind of the industry cluster theme that they're focused on for the for their concept paper. Now, the important thing to note here is that only 10 regions are going to get funded. So there will not be multiple proposals from one state that are going to get awarded. The goal for NSF is right now, anybody can submit a concept paper. So there can even be multiple concept papers out of the same university. And those will all be published to the public after the June 30th deadline, with the goal that folks will network and kind of reconvene to build one strong, cohesive application in the hopes that that gets funded. So I'm guessing, and you mentioned some concept papers too, Kai. I'm guessing there will be a couple that come out of Alaska, but I think ultimately the goal is that folks come together and say, okay, what is really our best bet of getting this $160 million allocated to our state? And so I think the real work is going to happen after that June 30th deadline. But right now, the only one that we seem to be looped in on is the proposal coming out of UAF.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know the EDA I was hoping we would find a way to have made that match work in there, and that just didn't come together. We're going to be here in early August also bringing together all the folks that worked on the EDA Build to Scale grants, and I expect that will also be a time when we'll come together to talk about the multiple engines concept papers and try and build some consortiums out of that. The AKV3 group has been building a concept around an innovation coalition to try and build a lot of the infrastructure needed for innovation work. A lot of that, though, got put into the Build to Scale proposal that was put in there. I'm curious if you could give us any sort of update on what is happening with G-Beta now, in terms of, I know we just finished cohort 3 recently, and is there a current plan for cohort 4 to continue in some sort of bridge fashion at this point, or is everything just kind of in a wait and see mode until any additional funding is found? What is the plan for the rest of 22 at this point?
Great question. None of our programming is going to be stopping. So we are, thankfully Generator is in good financial health that we can run this program off our balance sheet. So with the extra funds that we have, from other grants and opportunities that we are funding, sponsors, et cetera, outside of Alaska, we're able to fund the program. So, we're committed. I mean, our number one goal is to sustain and grow our programs in every market that we enter. And so, as long as we have to fund that ourselves, we'll do so. So know that the GBETA is not going away anytime soon. There will be another cohort. Certainly would have to look into the details. I know Linda's not able to speak on the call now, and perhaps she can provide a few details in the chat for us. But certainly we will continue to push that program forward. Same thing with our workforce development program. We're going to be continuing that. We have a little bit, 49 SAF is who supported us. That's how we got here. That's how our programs were originally funded. They pulled back the majority of those funds, and it sounds like there might be a little bit of funding, not nearly enough to fully fund the program, but some funding that they're able to support us with. So that's kind of where we're at now. And that's kind of why Audrey and I are here today. We're actively looking for different funding streams that would support the program.
Great, thanks. And Linda, I saw your note about doing the 4th Avenue as part of a concept paper. I think that makes sense to be able to do that. I'll pass that on to Ryan and maybe include that in what we might put together. Yeah, with the GBETA. That's great. Well, thanks for the update, Lean. That's actually encouraging to see what's going on. The impact of the program has been significant. I think everybody realizes that. We're all just kind of scratching our head trying to figure out why we can't find the local and state funding to be able to support this thing. And it's one of my pet issues that we keep having to go out to the feds to help ourselves here locally, despite our belief that we're these rugged individualists. But that only applies till we have to open our wallet, and then we love our feds, I guess.
Well, we appreciate it, and we're really grateful to be looped into this network. So thank you so much for everything that you've done, Kai. We're incredibly grateful.
Oh, good. Well, thanks for showing up today. And if you get a chance, if you haven't already, if you can, both of you, well, actually, no, I do see Audrey up there. If you can put your emails in the chat, I'll be able to grab that out later and follow up with you in the project here. And Andy had a good question, and I know this has shifted, but Andy's asking, can entrepreneurs who don't live in Anchorage participate in GBETA? And I know the intent through the EDA grant was to move this to statewide, but maybe you can clarify what's happening now in terms of, have you already been taking people from outside Anchorage? And if you do another cohort this year, what's the plan in terms of, is there a geographic limitation on participation? Maybe you're muted.
And Linda, please feel free to jump in the chat here. If I'm not mistaken, we do recruit statewide. The program is just considered based in Anchorage. So and same thing with our skills accelerator. So the workforce development program that we have, it's based in Anchorage, but that's a completely virtual program. And we also recruit statewide for that one. So hopefully I'm accurate in what I'm saying, but otherwise Linda will certainly jump in. So my understanding is we recruit statewide.
That's what I saw happening before. At least that's what it seemed like. And it's exciting opportunity. There's also a related program I'm looking at that is Catalyze Alberta as a potential model for how Alberta is offering a virtual accelerator as another piece of the puzzle. But the pre-accelerator options between Upstart Alpha and GBETA have been instrumental in feeding the rest of the pipeline that connects up to Launch Alaska and the Angel Conference. We need to strengthen that. A key piece that I'd like you to be thinking about is we are moving ahead with the Alaska Challenge program, which is intended to be a challenge program in early fall. We piloted it last year through AKV3, and the intent is to grow that program this year. And it's part of what's written into the EDA Build to Scale grant, is to expand the program. And it's essentially designed around both curating and sharing Alaska-based challenges in an open innovation type of structure, like you've seen with HeroX and Incentive and other programs like that, But in addition to curating and sharing Alaska challenges, it will also be sharing and curating other challenges from these other sites like Incentive, challenge.gov and so on, but promoting those within Alaska where we think those challenges uniquely take advantage of Alaskan capability and experience, or where working on those challenges would be valuable to Alaska and Alaskans. And I'd love to see us figure out how to take that program and connect it up to something like the G-Beta program, so that as folks get into that program and get interested in coming up with solutions for those challenges, that they have a next step where they could go with those potential new ventures that are created from that challenge work. So part of all of the work that we've done, you know, this goes back 7 years, has been to try and create a pipeline of innovation, if you will, that starts off with ideas and challenges that then are fed into business models and pre-accelerator programs that then move into mentorship and regular accelerator and incubation programs that moves into business planning and finance and supporting the launch of businesses and the support there. So seeing G-Beta being able to help fit into that flow and being able to work on the timing of what you're going to do with the next cohort, I'd love to see that timing somehow bookended so that it fits in with the challenge work, also fits in with the startup weekends, and, you know, is part of building up the rest of the ecosystem activities rather than being an island of activity that's valuable. But you know, it could be stronger if it was connected up with the rest of the calendar of what we're doing.
100%. And that's, you know, our goal always is to be, you know, to plug into the pipeline and to be that, you know, at one stop in an entrepreneur's journey. And so I totally agree with you, Kai. And, you know, again, Linda is the one to probably have that conversation with you, but to the degree that Audrey and I can help, please let us know.
Yeah, cool. All right, good. Well, we're getting close to the witching hour here. Thank you all for jumping in. A couple quick announcements and reminders. The SEDS, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies discussions. There's 2 meetings going on for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial ecosystem players, and I would certainly suggest Linda, if not others from Generator, to participate in that meeting. There's 2 of them. There's one on the 21st at 12 p.m. There's a second on the 23rd at 1 p.m. These are being organized by CED. There's information out there, but contact me if you're missing that. The meeting that Dick is referring to, the APEC Baldridge meeting, is going on at 8:30. It's both virtual and place-based on Thursday the 23rd in the morning. And again, this Baldridge process is a really valuable one, not only for improving current businesses, but fundamentally it's an amazing model for how to think about designing a business from scratch. And while it started off as an improvement model, it's actually a great business design model. And so I encourage people on both ends of that spectrum to consider attending and learning from this. And gosh, oh, the third one is the meeting at 3 p.m. on the 23rd, looking at the military ecosystem, both in terms of workforce flow and innovation activity and connections to the community. So I hope you'll jump into any or all of those. And again, thank you for jumping in and joining us today.